Hi there, and welcome back to the Happy Moms Project. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so honored you continue to choose to spend some time with me. Today, I'm going to be going over more of those pressures and give you some tips on how I have or I am handling them that will help you thrive in motherhood. Let's dive in. Number 5, social media comparison. It's happened to all of us. You're scrolling through Instagram, and all you see are other moms with their clean, spotless homes, or smiling babies, perfectly styled hair, while they're cooking their baby's food in a 6-course meal for their husbands. New moms going on date nights with their husbands and talking about how their 4-week-old slept all night and how they feel so amazing that they got a full night's sleep. I wish. It makes me feel like I'm falling short. Add on to that the constant criticisms. I can't tell you how many messages I have received on social on how ridiculous it is that I don't show my baby's face on camera. Other influencer moms make a whole business out of this, Liz. Why don't you? I even had someone tell me that because I have a public page and I share bits and pieces of my life, I have to allow their criticism on my choices in parenting. It's a lot of pressure. The algorithm shows you videos on what you interact with. So if you go and you like and you share a couple moms reel, all of a sudden all you see is content that makes you feel like you're not doing enough or you're not doing it right. And if this is happening to you, you're not alone. I feel like this too. I work so hard to thrive in each area. Being a mom, being a wife, being a successful entrepreneur, showing up for my friends, trying to keep up with social engagements, and I still fall short. Don't beat yourself up. Social media is not real. No one is showing you their failures, the days that they wake up with imposter syndrome, or the help they actually get to be able to balance so much. As long as you're doing your best, you're doing enough. Let me share some tips on what has helped me when I feel down and I compare myself to life on social media. You can try limiting your time on social, especially if you're feeling down. Give yourself a 24-hour break so you can recharge and get yourself in the mental state that you need to be. Remind yourself that what you're seeing is a highlight reel, not real life. People are not sharing their failures on social. And the third and most important is practice gratitude. Remind yourself how blessed you are to have your baby and the self-awareness to acknowledge when you are down and when you need a break. When you stop comparing yourself, you can focus on your own journey and you can find joy in the real, messy, and beautiful moments that motherhood brings. It's never going to be perfect, but you're trying and you're showing up for your baby in the best way that you can. And for that, I am so proud of you. Number 6, feeding choices. Breastfeeding versus formula is one of the most hotly debated topics. Moms who can't or choose not to breastfeed often face judgment, which is so unfair. It's me. I'm mom's. As I mentioned earlier, I had 3 sets of implants plus an explant because those toxic bags were making me super sick. And my surgeon, who's amazing, was very clear with me on the possibility of not being able to breastfeed after the explant. And unfortunately, it was something that I had to accept because keeping those bags in was not an option. I remember friends telling me how tender their breasts felt when they were pregnant, and that was never a symptom that I had. Yeah, they grew, but that's because my weight grew. They never really had any milk. So I started quietly prepping myself for this since really early on in my pregnancy, and I researched the best formula to give Jack if I needed to because I knew I was going to need to. I just had a feeling. So the day of my C-section, we arrived to the hospital with our bag ready, including the formula. I chose a European brand for their ingredients and based on my friends' experiences that had used it. After my surgery, because C-section is a surgery, John and Jack went to the recovery room while my doctor was finishing. And when I arrived, I was so groggy, but I remember John telling me how rude the nurse had been to him. And this came as such a surprise because I thought the nurses taking care of newborn babies and new mothers were supposed to be like the sweetest. And the majority of the nurses were really nice, but unfortunately, that first interaction I had was not. She tried to get Jack to latch on and breastfeed, but of course, nothing came out. He was livid. He was screaming so loud, and I felt so bad that I had nothing. It was so traumatizing. And after a couple minutes, John suggested that we try the formula, and she was not happy about it, especially when we said we had brought our own formula from home. Her exact words were, "If you have your own, I can help you prepare it." Can you imagine how we felt as brand new parents hearing this? The lactation consultants kept coming into my room, and I know they were trying to help, but they were not listening to me. They were making me feel terrible. I tried explaining to them every single time that I had the X plan and the breastfeeding was probably not going to happen. It was not a possibility, but they just kept pushing. And I had to end up being a little bit rude and asking them to not come in anymore. Like, this really made my hospital experience a really negative one. And then after, every time someone complimented the baby or had a conversation with me about the process, they would always ask if I was breastfeeding. And again, I found myself having to explain the explant as a way to justify myself and why I was not breastfeeding. It was so sad that I felt like I had to justify my baby's feedings, even to strangers, to not feel judged or like I was a bad mother. And if I'm honest, and I can get very vulnerable with you, I still feel guilty about it. I felt like my choices early in life to get these implants caused this, and it was not a good feeling. The truth is, whether you choose to breastfeed or give formula or force into it like I was, you shouldn't feel guilty. The best baby is a fed baby. Jack is literally outside the curve for Florida and over the 99th percentile in his own curve, and he has been a formula baby since day one. I have friends who have breastfed their kids well into their first and sometimes second year, and their babies have hit all their milestones that they needed to hit. So don't let society pressure you into feeling bad about yourself and your choices. If you do feel bad, here are some tips that worked for me. Feed your baby in a way that works best for you, whether it's breastfeeding, formula, or a combination of both. Shut down any judgment with so much confidence. Hey, this is what works for my family. And again, setting that boundary is crucial. Feeding is about love and connection, not meeting someone else's expectations. And I'm here to tell you that you can still connect with your baby, even if you're feeding him with a bottle. I do. Number 7, the supermom myth. Society loves the idea of the supermom who does it all. Parenting, working, cooking, cleaning, staying fit, keeping your partner happy while making sure you show up for your friends, for your family. You remember birthdays, anniversaries. Remember to call everyone back without ever breaking a sweat. But trying to live up to that image can and will make you so burned out. If you're a high achieving type A personality like me, not performing at your best at any of these can give you major anxiety and feelings of not being and doing enough. And this is where boundaries and prioritizing come in. Most of us are a one-woman show, so we need to set schedules and follow them to make sure we accomplish it all. But asking for help is allowed too. Don't think that because someone else bathed the baby or helped you put her to sleep that you're losing out on connecting with them. This was so tough for me at first. It still is. I struggle leaving Jack for long periods of time with even my mom or my in-laws because the mom guilt sets in and I feel like I'm going to lose connection with him if he doesn't see me there for every little thing that goes on. I have had to admit that I need help. But most importantly, I have realized that he needs to build connections with other important figures in his life, such as grandparents, aunts, and even his godmother, who happens to be my best friend. So some tips to help you with the super mom complex. Ask for help when you need it. You don't have to do everything yourself. Prioritize what really matters and let go of the rest. And be honest with those who expect a phone call, a text back, and let them know that you have a lot on your plate and you did not forget about them. Write down your schedule and share it with those who have offered to help and can help. Working together is going to make a huge difference. It truly does take a village. And when you stop trying to be super mom, you're going to have so much energy to show up as the mom your kids really need. The dishes are going to get washed eventually. You will eventually call your friend back, and your baby's going to appreciate you being present and not being stressed out. And the last, but certainly not the least, number 8, emotional suppression. There's this pressure to always seem happy and grateful, even when you're struggling. But motherhood isn't always sunshine and rainbows, and that's okay, especially if you're dealing with postpartum. I still find myself 7 months later having days where I recognize I'm more irritable than ever, and I tend to stay away from situations that irritate me more. I'm able to recognize what triggers me, and I really, truly try to avoid that at all costs. Do I lose my cool? Absolutely. Do I get frustrated and cry by myself? And sometimes not by myself? Absolutely. I'm trying to deal with life, plus set an example for someone who's watching me and mirroring his developing nervous system after my actions. And this is such a big deal. I want him to be around positive energy always, but I know that as he gets older, this is not always going to be the case. I'm sure he's going to see me losing it at one point. But as long as I can be apologetic and open about how I can correct this behavior so it doesn't happen again, I'm going to teach him healthy conflict resolution and communication skills. Two skills that will literally set him up for success for the rest of his life. Life isn't always pretty. I wish we could shelter our kids from all the bad, ugly stuff, but we can't. Instead, we can learn to recognize what triggers us, find ways to avoid the triggers, and have the humility to apologize when we need to. You can create a healthy space for your baby, but it starts with you. So, what can you do? Talk about how you're feeling with someone you trust. Remind yourself that it's okay to have bad days. It doesn't make you a bad mom. Practice mindfulness when you're feeling triggered and learn to recognize behaviors and patterns that make you feel this way. By being honest about your emotions, you teach your kids that it's okay to feel all feelings, not just the good ones. Healthy nervous systems also includes times when we lose it. You got this. Recognizing these pressures and letting them go is not easy, but it's one of the best gifts you can give yourself and your kid. You're doing an incredible job, even if it doesn't always feel that way. Remember, you're not alone, and together we can create a motherhood experience that feels empowering and fulfilling. You can thrive in motherhood, and I want to help you do it. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your precious time with me today. I know your time is gold, and I'm truly honored you chose to spend it here. If this episode spoke to you, don't forget to hit subscribe so we can stay connected. And if you know a parent who needs to hear this, please share it with them because none of us are in this alone. I'll be right here next week with more tips, stories, and reminders that you matter. Until then, remember, taking care of yourself isn't just for you, it's for your kids, for your family, and your sanity. You're doing an amazing job. Take care of yourself and keep making space for your happiness.